and welcome to the Reformed Dissenters. Thank you so much for listening or watching our show today, whichever platform you might be watching or listening to it on. Since this is our first episode, we'll be discussing we want to help introduce you to what the show is going to look like. So to do that, we're going to be discussing the core principles of the show, and then we're going to be laying out what each show structure will look like. And after that, we are going to introduce you to our cast, and we're going to do that through a few questions that may help you get to know us a little bit better. So, my name is Bruce Johnson. I am here with Joseph Lassiter.
Hello.
And also my brother, Jacob Johnson.
Hey.
All right. So, this is the first show, obviously. This is our introduction. If you want to follow us on all the platforms that we are on, we try to emphasize the fact that we join pro-First Amendment platforms, so pro-free speech platforms. So you can find us on Rumble. We are on Gab. We're also on Gab TV. We're also on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify, so we do a podcast version of this show, which is audio only. And you can also find us on iHeartRadio. So if that sounded like a lot and you were like, oh my goodness, how am I going to find all of these things? Don't worry. All you have to do is go to our website, which is TRD Show. And TRD stands for The Reformed Dissenters. So it's trdshow.net. And that's where you can find a list of links that are the platforms that our show is on. So yeah, Joe, what's up?
Did you ever find out about Amazon podcasts?
I did not. No. So if we get some requests about that, we can definitely move it on there. I think for now we've got a whole host of platforms that we are also on. Yes, Jake.
So if you are interested on seeing us on Amazon, you need to send us an email.
Yes, I was just about to get to that.
Yes, and he will have sent the email because I don't have it memorized yet.
We're still learning all the platform links, but you can email the show at TRD Show. Again, that's The Reformed Dissenters is what TRD stands for. TRD Show at protonmail.com. Again, that's TRD Show at protonmail, PROTON mail.com, and you can send emails to that email address if you have topics that you think would be cool for us to talk about, you have questions, or any comments.
I want to mention the reason we are using Proton Mail is because we, again, want to fit in with using pro-First Amendment platforms. So that is why we're not using at gmail.com or at yahoo.com or any of the well-known ones. It's because we don't like the big platforms that want to squash or censor people. So that is why we are using Proton Mail.
So I want to talk about the verse of the week. So this is going to be a part of our show that we're going to have every week. We're going to have a verse of the week. And this week, we are going to highlight the theme of our show and the verse of our show. If you've seen our logo, you'll find this verse is in our logo, and we find that this verse kind of sums up the entire principles and concepts of what we want to get across with this show. It sums them up perfectly. So I'm just going to read this verse. This verse is Matthew 5:13, and it says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet." And that's the ESV version, which is what I usually read from.
That is a very good verse, especially with what we're trying to talk about on this show.
Yes.
And how in our culture currently we have lost that saltiness of Christians have lost that saltiness.
Yes.
And so what we are doing has become sort of useless, and we need to get back into culture and gain that saltiness back.
Yes. Yes, and salt, if you're unfamiliar with this verse, or maybe you've seen it from a different perspective, the perspective we see on this verse is that, salt is a preservative. It is something that was used in Bible times to preserve meat, packaged meat that was shipped. So it preserved that meat, and it kept it fresh, and it preserved it. So what we should be doing as Christians is preserving culture. That's our job. We're meant to preserve. We're meant to be salt, preserving, and light in this culture. So that's how we are generally interpreting this particular verse.
And especially there, when talking about light, how light is bright. We are supposed to shine brighter than the unbelievers or non-Christians. It's also the definition of holy. It means we are set apart. We are different. We should see that. People should see that.
Yes. Cool. So, I want to talk a little bit about the primary principles of our show. And so these, we kind of put together a bit of a list that I think pretty adequately gets across what our show is about, right? Why do we exist? What sort of a show are we going to be? Why did we feel the need to come together and discuss some of these things and put them on a very public forum? Why did we feel the need to do this? So let's discuss some of the core principles of this show. And we're going to do this kind of in a question-answer format. So I'm going to ask the question, and I think these are questions that I think any of us could get as we are, when we're on the street, when someone comes up to us and asks us, hey, what's your show about? We're talking to someone online, we're talking to anybody about the show, and they're like, okay, and these are some of the questions that they might ask. And so these are, I think, answers that we all would agree on. So the first question is, what makes us different, right? Why are we different from every other show that's out there, right? There's all sorts of talk show hosts out there, all sorts of conservative, Republican shows out there. Why do we have to exist?
Mainstream media.
Media. I mean, yes, if you're watching this show, I would hope that the mainstream media is not an alternative, but right. Yes, I suppose to some people, the mainstream media is an alternative to us, theoretically. But I believe, and I think we're unified in believing that we believe God's word should be involved in all areas of life. So we're very principled and are determined not to collapse under the pressure of secular culture, which is very important. We're called to be salt and light. And you're going to hear this theme harped on a lot today as we go through this and we talk about what the show is going to look like. That verse is very, very important to us, and that's why we made it the main verse. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Nope. I agree.
Summed up pretty well. Okay,
yep.
Cool. Okay, next question. What is the primary focus of the show? Right? What are we going to focus on in each episode, each month, each week? What are we doing here? What are we talking about? So the primary focus of this is we want to be informative, we want to be thought-provoking, and most importantly, we want to be God-centered. So we want to help others find information that they might not have had time or willpower to find on their own, because information is hard to find sometimes. Looking for the truth can be hard to find. And if you are someone who is busy, which I think we're human beings and we are very busy, right?
Yep.
Yes. And so looking for the truth and looking for information can be a lot of work and very tedious. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, well, I don't want to do this. So we want to provide information. We want to be thought-provoking, and we want all of that information. And Jacob has a great illustration I'll ask him to share in a second. We want all that information to filter through the Bible. Do you want to share that illustration you mentioned before about how that filters through?
Yeah. So the illustration I gave before was, if you're thinking of a window unit that you would put in your house, you think of that filter there that is inside of that window unit. So air is getting pulled in through through the return, and you have your filter, which is supposed to take out all the not so great stuff that's in the air,
bacteria,
and then bacteria,
yep.
And then it sends it back out. But that we should think of the Bible as a filter for everything we think and everything we hear, everything we see. That's including news articles we see or websites we hear from, mainstream media being another one. that we filter all of that we see, we hear, we think through the lens of the Bible. It's also another illustration we're thinking of worldviews that we put whenever we put glasses on. Our worldview, or those lenses in the glasses, should be the Bible. We should think and see everything through the lens of the Bible.
Yep. That's great. Anything you want to add, Joe?
No.
Cool. So that's kind of the primary focus of this show. We want everything to be, as Jacob said, filtered through the lens of the Bible, through the filter of Scripture. Okay, this is a big question, and this is I'd like to get everybody's opinion on this one. I think this is probably one of the most critical questions, right up there with what are our principles. This is a question I think we could get asked a lot by a lot of people. And I wanted to put this in here because none of us are experts. None of us have prior vocations or prior experience speaking in a professional political level. And so I think that sets up the question, why should people listen to what we have to say? Right? Why does our information, opinion, you could say truth, because I think what we're trying to share is truth, mixed with, and we'll make this clear, mixed with our opinions, and we'll make that clear when we're sharing our opinions and when we're actually sharing biblical truths. Why should people listen to what we have to say? And so I think the answer to that, ironically, is they shouldn't. And I say that because when I hear the word listen, I think of someone in authority saying, this is the ultimate authority, right? This is truth. Anything else is wrong. So that's what, when I hear the word listen, especially in this context, it's like what we have to say is truth no matter what. And that's not exactly what the point of the show is. The point of the show is that people watching, our audience, does their own research. And they figure this stuff out as well for themselves, right? We provide the evidence, we provide the resources, we provide the biblical passages that speak to these things, and then we want you to go and study it as well. Don't just trust us, look it up. Read the books that we're reading, and we're going to discuss that in a second too, but read the books that we're reading. Read the resources we cite and we share. Look up the biblical passages and talk to other Christians about them, right? The Bible says that iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah, that goes back to what I was saying as using the Bible as a filter. As you do your research, just making sure that all of your research is brought through and into understanding of the Bible.
Looked at through a biblical context. Yes.
That you shouldn't listen to us, but someone you should listen to is God. And we can know what he is saying through the Bible.
Yes. Exactly. So those are kind of some of the primary principles of the show. If you're looking to share this show with other people and you want to describe the show to them, you can find a lot of these same principles fleshed out a little bit better on our website, and they're in small little snippets that you can share with other people if you're interested in talking about the show and sharing it, which we would really appreciate if everyone put this on their social media or at least emailed it to some of their friends. And you can also email us. I just want to mention this again. You can email us with questions or potential topics for the show at our email address, and that's at trdshow@protonmail.com. And don't forget, you can look on our website if you want to share that. Like I just mentioned, we have excerpts and snippets on there, and the platform links on our website. And our website is TRD Show, and again, that stands for The Reformed Dissenters, trdshow.net. I'm just throwing this in here because I think it's a good thing to talk about. What do you guys, what is the term? We went with the term dissenters for a reason. Right, and I think we all collectively chose this term. What does that term, in relation to this show, mean to you? And I know I'm putting a lot of people on the spot here, so any thoughts that jump out?
Thought that jumped out right as well as he was putting me on the spot. Back whenever I was looking at what the term dissenter meant a couple weeks ago, it kind of meant a filter, if you will, kind of like how Jacob was describing. We are saying, yay, this is something we agree with. We are saying, nay, no, we're not agreeing with it. It's kind of like we're filtering, we're accepting and or not accepting. We're choosing what to believe, or what we think is true or what is not.
That's also another interesting topic and could go into another rabbit hole. Is that's also the word. That's also how you would explain the word discrimination. We're discriminating between other things, and a lot of people say nowadays that we think of that as a bad term, but you're discriminating. You're saying what's bad and what's good, and you're choosing, basically.
Yes. And I think that also goes into, as we're choosing, we have to realize that, yes, we have a bias, and that's not necessarily wrong, because as human beings, none of us are without bias. It's just figuring out what is the best bias to be biased to, right? And there's something called the Myth of Neutrality, and if you want to look that up, that's a really good topic that's a rabbit hole that you can delve into that I think is really important, a philosophical idea. The Myth of Neutrality states that we can have neutrality in government, in culture, in the ideas that we have, that there are things that we can have neutrality in, and that we can be neutral, and we're not biased towards one perspective. And it's called a myth for a reason, because it simply doesn't exist.
Right.
Human beings are biased, but we need to be biased towards God's word and not biased towards secular ideologies and the secular world. And so when I think about, and that was kind of a rabbit hole, just kind of going off of what Jake was saying, but when I think about being dissenters, I wrote this on the website because I thought it was important. Dissenting against popular opinion. Popular opinion is something that's an opinion that's been held by people, and it's become popular because it's been shared so much, and everyone just kind of accepts it as true, right? I think at this point, unfortunately, the incorrect theory of evolution has reached a point of popular opinion, right? It hasn't been proved by science. We can't prove it. We never will. And yet everyone accepts it as fact. It's a popular opinion that we dissent against as Christians. And so I think dissenters are people who are not afraid to take their principles and speak out, right? They're people who are not just going with the flow. They're not just taking the popular opinion and sitting by the sidelines and believing it. Or maybe they don't believe it and they're not going to say anything. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to make waves. I don't want to, whatever. Dissenters dissent. They provide a dissenting perspective. And again, that's a dangerous place to be in. I think a lot of times people sometimes will gravitate towards dissenting opinions. And we need to make sure that the dissenting opinions we provide are based on the foundation of Scripture. So that's one of the most important tenets of this show, I think, as well. Brought it back to that, but that all plays into my definition of what I believe and why I think we called ourselves the Reformed Dissenters. Also, we're Reformed.
And also, just like as you were saying, dissenting, we are dissenter. When I think of dissenter, I'm also thinking of going back to that passage and thinking about how a dissenter is someone who is salt that hasn't lost their saltiness.
Yep.
Well, a good dissenter, someone who has the right dissenting,
a principled dissenter. Right. Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Asking us questions will definitely be a good way for us to help be dissenters, because we're trying to filter things out. Look, John, he was answering a lot of questions, and Jesus, he would answer questions, and he would also answer questions with questions.
Yes. Yep. All very good points. So, all of that, I wanted to touch on this a little bit because I think it's important that we talk about why we named ourselves what we did, because that's a critical point of the show, is we built it into our name. So great. So we talked a lot about the principles of the show, what the purpose of the show is, what sets us apart, all of that kind of stuff, which is very, very critical. The other half of it is what you as the audience is going to be experiencing, what you're going to be experiencing every show. And so we're going to break down the structure of the show and talk about what each week, by the way, it's a weekly show. We're going to be talking about what the show will look like each week. So every month we will be introducing a new theme, which will be the central topic for all the shows within that month. So we have a lot of themes on the list right now. Again, if you're interested in contributing to this list, or you have a particular theme that you'd like us to talk about, you can email the show, and I've listed that already, but it's trdshow@protonmail.com. You can also go to the website and you can find the email there, and the website is trdshow.net. So check that out if you're interested in sending us some show ideas and contributing to the list that I'm about to read. So some of the topics that we already have listed and we're going to be talking about, and again, this topic covers an entire month of shows. So ordinarily 4 shows within this one topic. So this is a big topic that we're going to be breaking down into smaller chunks, and we have some other stuff to go along with this that I'm going to be talking about shortly. But some of the topics we have are, the first one, huge thing that I think a lot of Christians need to know about, the dangers and evils of the government schools. And government school systems. So we're really going to be harping on that a lot, because it's one of the most important things in our culture right now, is breaking down that idea. Another topic we have is using and discovering our God-given gifts. And that's an important topic because we need to know how to be salt and light in culture. How do we do this? How do we preserve culture? How do we get involved? One of the best ways has already been given to us individually. I'm talking about specific people, you listening to us right now. God has given you innate gifts built into you at birth that he wants you to use for his glory. And so that's one of the things that we want to talk about. Biblical war and rebellion is another topic that we probably will get into. Again, that's one that we think is pretty important.
We'll probably have to do a little research on that.
Yes.
Not like off the cuff, just do a lot of in detail.
All of these topics that we're going to be covering, we're going to be researching as much as we possibly can, and looking through biblical passages and making sure that what we're giving you as so our platform is more so us teaching. We're showing, we're sharing. So, and that is a very powerful role, and we'll be going over that in talking about government schools and stuff, but that we want to make sure that we have it right before we tell you about it. And
so the information, we want to make sure that our information, our sources are valid. We also want to make sure that our biblical passages are valid and that they're interpreted the correct way. So all of that will be very important. So things like biblical war and rebellion are humongous topics. And so we want to discuss those, and we want to break them down and give them their due justice and their fair time, and do them well. So those are some of the topics, and what we just talked about were the topics we want to do each month. We want to have one topic per month, so that's an important part, and that's going to kind of play into the content that we have on the show on a week-by-week basis. That content is going to be based on what the topic of the month is. So we'll be recording one episode per week. So like I said, it is a weekly show. I would recommend following us on our Gab page. That's where we're going to be sharing a lot of those sorts of things. And the cool thing about Gab is, of course, it's a social media platform. So we don't just share videos on Gab. We're going to be sharing all sorts of resources, verses, schedule changes. All those sorts of things are going to be on our Gab page.
Announcements.
So you can follow us there. Yes, announcements as well. Yes. We're also going to have our verse of the day. So every week, and it's more of a verse of the week. Not so much verse of the day because it's not a daily show, but it's going to be the verse of the week. And that verse will highlight some of the... it could either highlight some of the things that we're talking about that month, or it could highlight Christian encouragement, which I think is really important, that we encourage each other in Christ, and that it can get tiring and exhausting sometimes being salt and light in culture when you don't see results that are huge, right, of great magnitudes. When you see just tiny results or sometimes no results seemingly, it can get discouraging. So I think encouraging you through Scripture is very important. So that's something we want to do as well with the verse of the day. We also want to focus on current events because it's important that we know what's going on. We're well informed about what's currently going on, and we discuss and look at these things through a biblical lens, from a biblical perspective. And so on each show, we'll be breaking down what happened that week, both on a national level, and we also want to try to get it on a local level as well. We want to talk about, in our instance, we are in South Dakota. We want to talk about what's happening in the state of South Dakota this week. What happened? Was there something of note that we need to discuss? Are there things that aren't being done that should be happening? And that if you live in this particular state, you can help do, or those sorts of things. So we want to discuss that as well. So on a national level, we'll be talking about current events, and also on a local level. Go ahead, Joe.
Don't forget, Jacob is from Pennsylvania, so you'll be hearing a little bit about Pennsylvania's state as well.
Yes, both Jacob and I are from Pennsylvania. I just recently moved here a few weeks ago, and so I am a very happy resident of the state of South Dakota, and Jacob hopefully will be moving within the next year or two. Plans are yet to be made for that. So, yes, but currently we will have local news, theoretically, from 2 different states, which would be very cool. And of course, we can share it on, we can look up other states as well. The internet is pretty amazing at that.
Well,
so.
also another thing, the audience and the people listening can send in their own little news articles and different things that they want us to talk about on that show.
Yes, that would be fantastic. If you have something of note that you think has happened on a local level, a state level, or something you're like, I'm not interested in this, but I've never heard of this before. It sounds like, I don't know. That's like, wow, I didn't think that was something that could happen. Share that with us. If something's happening in your state on a local level, we would love to hear about it. And we will, get back to you if we decide to share that on the show. That would be very cool to see. So, we also want to talk about, so that's going to be one segment on the show, is talking about the news. So we have the verse of the day. We want to talk about the news, current events, what's happening, right, on a local and national level. And then also, one of the really big parts of this show is we want to have literature of the month. So we want to discuss a piece of literature each month that relates directly or potentially indirectly. We'll make bridges between literature and our theme. Every month we'll pick a new theme, and we'll also pick a new piece of literature. And so each week we're going to be reading 1 to 2 chapters, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on the size of the book. And we may not get through the entire book, but we might highlight parts of it that are, we think, really important. So we're going to be discussing that on the show as well each week. All right, so we're moving into the final segment of this episode, and this is one of our lengthier episodes. One thing I wanted to note was that our episodes ordinarily will be no more than 30 to 35 minutes long. Half an hour max, we're done. I know we'll have a lot more that we want to talk about, but at that point, we're done. We got to stop talking, and we got to let you research and try and absorb some of the things that we just talked about in the show.
I was actually worried that this show was going to be too short.
Yes.
Now I'm kind of worried it's going to be too long.
Yes, this episode we have allowed to be a little longer because we know there's so much to talk about. So
that, and with making sure it's under 30 minutes or around 30 minutes, it makes it where you'll have time. Then it's not a entire whole hour that you have to set aside to listen.
Yes.
Or watch.
Yes, exactly.
And also, with our podcast setting, you can pull out your fresh new pair of AirPods, stick them in, and work whilst you're listening to our show.
Exactly. So, what we're going to do now, in this last segment of our introductory episode, we are going to introduce to you our cast. We've introduced the show. We have thoroughly introduced the show. We've talked about it. We've talked about our principles. We've talked about the structure. Now we want to talk about us as individuals, which is, exciting. Getting to know the people who are talking to you, and we hope who you will be talking to us, who you will be talking to. So, I can go first. My name is Bruce Johnson, and I, like I said, used to live in Pennsylvania, just moved to South Dakota a few weeks ago. I'm currently a software engineer, and I've been a software engineer for 3 years. I was homeschooled, and for my last year of high school, I did dual enrollment, which meant I did college courses for my high school year, which was good because now I have a year less of college to do. I've been going through a college program, which is called Lumerit. They've recently, I think, switched their name to Pearson Education. But Pearson is fantastic. Their degrees are highly affordable. Their entire perspective on getting a degree is that it should be debt-free, which is fantastic. And I wish we were sponsored by them. This would have been the best commercial segue in the universe. However, we are not. But I would encourage you to look them up if you'd like. That's where I've been going to college. I also studied at a software engineering boot camp, 9-month rigorous boot camp called Hack Reactor, which is where I learned a lot of what I know when it comes to software engineering. And I've also been working with computers and code since I was like 12 or 13. So I really enjoy coding, and I also enjoy sharing political ideas. Some of my hobbies until last year didn't include politics, but COVID has been very instrumental in changing, I think, a lot of people to take more of an interest in that and actually study some of these things from a biblical perspective, and share some of this information. So some of my hobbies that I enjoy, I love playing music. I play all sorts of different instruments, and we'll be talking about that actually a little bit later. Jacob has some questions prepared, which I mentioned at the beginning of the show, so we'll be getting into those. I think that's everything, though. I think I shared some of the most important biography stuff. So let's move over to Joe.
Hi, I'm Joseph Lassiter. I'm from New Underwood, South Dakota. Let's see, I'm homeschooled, and also the same as Bruce, I did a dual enrollment in my senior year for electrical trades at Western Dakota Tech and in Rapid City, South Dakota. A lot of my hobbies is I've been in politics since I was 9. Through an organization called Teen Pact. I've enjoyed doing them, and that's just at my 9 till I was 12. We just did a 1-day. We took a trip out to the state capitol and we wrote our own bills, and we discussed them like parliamentary procedure. But then I got 13. And then a couple of years after that, we also did the exact same thing, but 4 days worth of that. Instead of having to do it all crushed into 1 day, it's a 4-day class. That's one of the things that I have as a hobby. Another hobby is we have a hobby farm. As I said, I've also studying as an electrician, so that's kind of where my job is at.
Nice. These are entirely unscripted, so what you see is what you get. So it works out pretty well.
All off the top of our heads, trying to come up with answers to these, trying to tell you kind of who we are. And it's actually kind of hard to sum up the majority of your life.
Oh, I know.
In a couple of sentences.
Your life in 30 seconds is a very interesting story that sometimes won't fit together very well. It's like, oh, I did this. Oh, but then 2 years before that, I did this. And then 5 years after that, I was doing... It's like, oh, my goodness. Timelines, right?
Which reminds me, another hobby of mine is I'm a survivalist. I've done a couple of survival camps, and there's a camp that I want to do where you are completely outdoors with no shelter. And it used to be with the Team Pack program, but they separated to a Bold Axe program.
Nice. That's very cool.
So, I guess moving on to me, I am Jacob Johnson. I am Bruce's brother. I again, like him, live in Pennsylvania. Currently live in Pennsylvania. Have not moved yet.
Very shortly. Very shortly.
Yes.
We hope.
I am a chef, and I would like to continue being a chef. I work in a local restaurant / brewery.
Is there a threat of you not continuing to be a chef?
Possibly. I don't know.
Oh dear.
Yeah, we never know what the future brings. But I would like to continue and
He's so
become a
pessimistic.
chef.
He's gonna
Actually,
He's
yeah.
going to go from chef to being the brewery.
Yeah. But I am homeschooled like the rest of them. And I am planning to go to college, but it is very different and odd. But I am hoping to do online culinary school. And this is not going to be the basic college of where you do gen ed classes or you have to do all these 2 years of beginner classes. That's where I'm going to start college and go immediately into what I want to do in the profession I want to do. And so that's going to be very, very fun. I am still actually in my last year of high school, so I have not graduated yet. But, yeah, that's
Very cool.
just about it.
Very cool. So now that we've kind of all introduced ourselves formally, we're going to do a little bit of a game to introduce some of our, I guess, thought processes and just have a little bit of fun with it. So Jacob put together a few questions, and neither Joe nor I have actually prepared any answers, so we're just going to kind of come up with these and think about some of these questions and come up with some answers off the top of our heads. I think Jacob has prepared some answers, which is great because that means he gets to start out with the answers. So, Jacob, go for it.
And also, I do not think you want me to be just going off the top of my head. I can get either very rambly or I will have separate trains of thoughts that will not make any sense. So, first question is, where do you see yourself in 10 years? So I don't know if
Whoa.
we want to start with me or we can go through. Maybe
You better,
we
'cause
should.
10 years is a long
Yeah.
time, and I got to think about each one for about 30 seconds. So, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, go for it.
But I see myself in 10 years as, first of all, moving out here and being here in South Dakota. So for me, 10 years, I will be 27. And by that time, I will hopefully be married. And I want to be working on starting my own restaurant. Or either having a restaurant or starting my own restaurant. Or in the process of starting my own. Or if
He's
not
an
a restaurant.
entrepreneur.
Yes.
Through and
yes. I do believe almost all homeschoolers are.
Yes,
Are entrepreneurs.
I would believe that.
Yeah.
I would believe that.
They have
in
this
my
certain
life,
drive in them.
yes, in my life, I've started 4 or 5 different businesses, and I'm actually maintaining one of them, which is actually going rather well. So, yes, I would believe that. The homeschoolers are generally more
Entrepreneurial.
entrepreneurial, yes, for sure.
I thought you were going to go into a selfless plug there, but okay.
No, I'm
But,
not. Shameless plug. No, I'm not. The company will remain nameless
Yes.
until a further date.
Yes. But I will also hopefully have 10 years of podcasting under my belt if this show continues to go well. So
Nice.
that'll be really
Yes. Yes. Yeah, if we have this show for 10 years, that would be very cool to see. Well, I mean, which one of us do you think is going to have a beard? I'm curious.
Well, as long as I'm not in Civil Air Patrol, I will.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe's working on that, actually. The beard and Civil Air Patrol.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another
both,
thing I'm
both.
part of.
Open-ended
Yeah.
question there. Open-ended statement. Cool. I can go next.
All right, well, I can go next.
Yeah, all right,
either.
Joe, go for it.
Well, 10 years, again, it's a long way to think about, but 10 years,
Yeah,
probably
geez, Jake,
have...
What kind of a question was that? No, go ahead.
I probably would have about 10 years, I hope, of podcasting under my belt. But after that, I probably going to be an electrician for sure, journeyman, and probably married at that time.
Awesome. Yes. Well, I don't mean to be, super spiritual, but I just want to put this out there and just say, we don't know what the future may hold. So that's my answer. There we go. I have no idea. No clue. No.
Cop out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the cop out answer there. It's the easy. Yes. Well, okay. So, like I said, I have a business. So there's so many threads in my life right now that my answer to most of what I'm about to say is going to be, I'm interested to see where it goes. That's kind of my go-to answer is I'm like, I'm here. I've got this, and this. And in 2 years, I'm interested to see where this goes. So, my business, like I said, is taking off rather well. And I'm interested to see where it goes. I'll give the name of my business if you're interested. If you are a musician and you don't like physical binders of paper, yes, I know books are important. Yes, I know you should have physical copies of books because they could delete the digital versions when they wanted to. I know we've had digital book burnings already in America. Yes, paper is good. However, as a musician, the practicality sometimes of carrying around a binder that's this thick, full of music, is kind of insane. And at least for me, my personal experience, it was bonkers trying to do that. So I created a website and an app called Lyric Keeper. So you can go to lyrickeeper.com. Shameless plug. There it is, Jake. You happy now? It's in there. And it's an app that helps musicians easily keep track of their lyrics and their chords. So definitely check that out. But we've gotten about 1,000 users a month now using the site, and that's it's been around for less than a year. So it's kind of cool, and I'm interested to see where this goes. Yes, I'd like to be married within a few years, which would be cool. Yeah, aside from that, I'd love to get my music career. I'd love to be more involved in the musical, what's the word for that? The musical landscape, I guess, is the word. Like, what's going on? I think on a local level, I'd really like to do a lot more music and be tapped in. And in Pennsylvania, I was making connections, which was super cool, and I'd like to make kind of the same connections here. So in 10 years, I'd like to be, I guess, well known as a musician in this area. I don't know. Like, at least have gigs that I can go to on a weekly basis would be cool. And yes, I'd also like to see churches in this area grow. So I think that's one of the things. In 10 years, I'd love to be part of more outreach ministries, I think, in this area, and part of more, I'm going to say programs, which has a negative connotation to it because of government programs, but church programs that help the culture and help do that sort of stuff. So I'd love to be more involved in that. So yeah, own a house. Oh my goodness. Yes, own a house. That would be great. Hopefully in a year I'll be actually owning instead of renting. That would be
something
cool.
We all forgot.
Yes, owning a house. That's a big part. Where am I going to live in 10 years? Well, I didn't talk about it on this show. It wasn't on my list. So I guess I just want to have a house, Oh, well.
We're all hobos.
Yeah, that's right. We're all
living on the streets.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I'll just be the one living in the hills.
Yes. Yeah. Joe will build his own humble abode that will probably not be humble. It will be magnanimous and beautiful because, he's a survivalist, but he's also really good at being, a survivalist. So he won't just survive. He will survive in style. Right. Okay.
Got to build from the ground up.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. All right. What's the next question?
We all done here? Okay. Alrighty. Next question is...
We done here. What kind of a...
what is your favorite kind of music and why?
Oh, wow.
For me, this has to be prefaced... Well, it has to be encapsulated in Christian. I want it to be Christian pop / Christian rap. So, the combination of the two.
Now, that's your favorite, but is that the one you listen to the most?
I would say yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
well,
That's cool.
kind of. Especially if I'm gonna name the artist that I like the most, and it is Toby Mac.
Nice.
And that is why I combined Christian pop with Christian rap. So
he does a lot of that. Yeah. Same
yeah.
sort of stuff.
Oh yeah. I like the so reason for rap, and actually I do believe the question, and I don't know if I said it. I probably did. What is your favorite kind of music and why? So why I like rap is because of its very rhythmic speed. I like the very fast, talking fast, but still in a rhythmic song setting. So that is my favorite kind of music, and why.
Very cool. I guess I can go next. Yeah, so for me, it's very hard to put like a label on exactly what it's hard to pick one favorite genre of music because I love and play so many different genres. It's like I would have to I mean picking one would be crazy because I love different things about all sorts of different ones, all sorts of the different genres that I play. So like I play pop music, I play jazz a lot, I play bluegrass music. And so, do I play anything else? I think that's pretty much it. And so I think for each of those, I like them for different reasons. Bluegrass music, I tend to go more on the melody sort of side of things, rather than having lyrics. Which is funny. I just mentioned my company, and I don't like a specific genre of music or I like a specific genre of music because it doesn't have lyrics. But whatever. Bluegrass and Celtic music. Sometimes I lump them together because a lot of the bluegrass bands I used to play with they did both of those. But I love the melodies. They're complicated sometimes. They can make you, really excited and like dancing around and stuff. And they could also make you sad and feel things, emotions, So I love classical music kind of for the same... Oh, I forgot to mention that. I love classical music kind of for the same reasons. I think for jazz, I love the complexity because when I play jazz, there's a lot of different chord changes, a lot of different intervals, all that sort of stuff. And also jazz is one of the few things that I can actually play on piano. So piano is not one of my main instruments, but I can do it well if I'm improvising and I'm doing other stuff on piano aside from some written stuff. And then pop, I just love singing, so I do popular music with guitar, and that's usually what I play at a lot of restaurants and stuff. So
it's a hard question. I don't really have a favorite genre because I listen from anywhere between classical, opera, plays, all the way up to heavy metal. So I can't tell you a specific genre. I can tell you what instruments I like the penny whistle and fiddle music, but I can't give you a specific genre because rock gets my adrenaline going versus Celtic is kind of more relaxing. I just can't give a big answer.
So it depends on your mood that day.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know what my mood is right now.
right. Yeah. So I would love to answer and have Jake ask some more questions. However, we are running very short on time. Not that I have a time limit. I had a time limit in mind, and we are well above that. So I think we're going to end today's episode at that and say thank you very much for watching. We'll probably ask some more of those questions that Jacob put together later. So, yes, we will have them. Hold your breath for that. They'll be there.
Filler time.
What's that?
Filler time.
Yeah, right. When we need some things to talk about, that's what we'll go to. So Jake's got a wonderful list there. But thank you so much for watching the show or listening to the show if you're on podcast. Don't forget, you can email the show at TRDShow. Again, that stands for The Reformed Dissenters. So TRDShow at protonmail.com. And you can email us there with suggestions for future shows or questions or comments or anything you have. You can also go to our website, which is trdshow.net, and that's where you can find, we've laid out all of our core principles on that website, and also you can find a link or a list of links to all of the platforms that we are on, and they'll link you directly to our profile on those platforms. So you just have to click the link and then hit follow, which would be great if all of you could go to as many of those platforms as you are currently on. I know some people might just be on one or none. If you have to pick a platform, I would encourage you to go to Gab or Odyssey. Rumble's good, but the Rumble interface isn't super great. The politics are wonderful. The platform's great, but the interface is a little tricky. And I know a lot of people have some issues with Rumble. But Odyssey, Gab, and Gab TV are all great. And if you have an account for Gab, you should, I think, already be able to watch Gab TV content as well. So, you guys have anything to add before we wrap up?
Just remember to like and subscribe on Spotify if you're on Spotify.
Yes, Spotify, iHeartRadio,
YouTube.
all the things. Yes, we're on YouTube for now. We'll see what happens.
Was that not one of the mentioned ones?
I forgot to mention that, actually.
Oh, goodness.
I coincidentally forgot to mention that. Huh.
So our reasoning for YouTube is it will be a badge of honor when we get kicked off.
Yeah.
We'll be able to say, hey, we were on YouTube, but
yes.
They kicked us off.
We're going to try it.
Doing something right.
Yes, we're going to try it and see how long we last. And as our audience grows, we'll see what happens. Again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the words are for all the platforms. And we will see you in our first kickoff episode. Looking forward to hearing from you. We'll see you then.